Have you ever walked past a plant so ordinary that you barely noticed it? A cluster of tiny white flowers growing quietly beside a footpath, in a meadow, or on the edge of an old country lane. Most people would pass it by without a second glance, yet for thousands of years, this humble wildflower was carried into battle, gathered by healers, hung inside homes for protection, and placed beneath pillows in the hope that it would reveal the face of a future husband in a dream. The Anglo-Saxons valued it enough to include it in one of Britain's oldest surviving healing charms, while country folk believed it could protect against illness, strengthen the body, and even glimpse what was yet to come. Its name is Yarrow. So join me as we step into the old ways once more and uncover the forgotten folklore of one of Britain's most extraordinary wild plants.
Hello my friends, and welcome once again to the Enchanted Wood. And this time around we're taking a look at Yarrow. So Yarrow has walked among us for such a long time that it's almost become invisible. It grows quietly along old footpaths, in hay meadows, on roadside verges, across chalky downs, and on the edge of fields where generations of farmers have provided us with food. It's a really hardy plant that asks for little. It thrives in poor soils where many other plants would really struggle, and once established it returns year after year. It's faithful and dependable, and maybe that's quiet resilience is one of the reasons why our ancestors came to respect it so much. It's known, and forgive me for butchering this, it's known to botanists as Achillea millefolium, meaning the thousand-leaved plant of Achilles. And it's easy to recognize once you know what to look for because of its flat-headed clusters of many tiny little white flowers and its frond-like leaves that look almost like feathers. Unfortunately, these are withered because of the heat wave that we're still in the midst of during this long hot summer. And if you gently crush the leaves, they give off a really actually nice smell. It's a beautiful smelling plant. Almost smells a bit like bacon crisps. Anyway, and for the people of the countryside and for our ancestors, it was a recognizable smell. It flowers through much of the summer, often from June into September, providing nectar for thousands of pollinating insects, such as bees, hoverflies, butterflies, and like I say, countless others. And today it still remains a very important plant for that reason along our meadows and roadsides and disturbed ground. But for those that lived before us, for our ancestors, it became much more than that, and Yarrow was more than just that simple flowering plant of the countryside. It became known and respected as a healer and a protector, and a plant carried by travellers. It was valued by soldiers, gathered by the wise folk, who understood the virtues hidden within our hedgerows, and wildflowers shouldn't be overlooked. So across the country and across Europe, it became known by many names, each of which hint at the role it played in people's lives. It had names like soldier's woundwort, or nosebleed, or carpenter's weed, or staunchweed, and every name tells us a small part of its story, preserving the memory of the ways ordinary people once lived their lives and used this amazing little plant. that today, like I say, we walk past, I think, without even noticing it. And unlike many rare herbs and plants, it wasn't hidden deep within forests and up high in the mountains. Yarrow is a herb that grows almost everywhere. It grew amongst where people lived. It was part of their everyday lives. Just like mugwort, it shared the same fields that people worked, the same paths they walked, and the same meadows where they cut hay every year and their children played. And maybe that's why it's found its way so deeply into British folklore. It was part of people's everyday lives, and it was never distant or mysterious. It doesn't hide its way. It doesn't hide its secrets like ferns. It was open and just there in front of people. It was a faithful companion, if you like, quietly waiting beside a path, generation after generation, until it was needed. And I think because of this, along with mugwort and other herbs, it gained its reputation through trust. And because of that, it became part of the 9-herb charm, the Anglo-Saxon 9-herb charm, which I mentioned in the mugwort video. And I will be covering in a little more depth in an upcoming episode. If you're interested, please subscribe. But if there's one quality that has followed Yarrow throughout history, it's probably its reputation for healing wounds. And across Britain, in fact across Europe, it became known by many names, say, but perhaps none were more revealing than Soldier's Woundwort or Staunchweed. In fact, it's been found on the bodies of Neanderthal men and prehistoric men 9,000 years ago. So this is how long it's been revered. And it had properties for healing cuts, bleeding, and other minor injuries. And long before modern medicines came along, country people learned through experience that if you crushed yarrow leaves, you could apply them to minor wounds. So whether you were working in the fields or whether you were cutting timber or tending livestock, injuries would be a massive part of everyday life. And I have birds on the roof of my workshop, causing chaos. Yes, and the plants growing around them in those places of work became the first remedies for injuries. They're the first things that they would see and reach for. And its reputation to heal spread far beyond British shores, across Europe and ancient Greece. Even the ancient Greeks even revered yarrow. And according to Greek legend, the great warrior Achilles was taught to use yarrow to treat wounds for his soldiers during the Trojan War. And it's from these stories that the plant receives its Latin name of Achillea. Whether those tales are history or myth, that's for other people to debate. But one thing's for sure, its influence was and reputation as a healing herb was cemented, and herbalists across Europe continued to use it and associate it with healing right up until modern times. In fact, it gained a reputation with soldiers of giving courage and protection and healing. And in the Middle Ages, yarrow was well established as the warrior's herb, like I say, bestowing the courage, protection, and for healing wounds. In fact, modern science can back that up. Military surgeons continued to use yarrow right into the early modern period, particularly when little else was available, and its healing properties became legendary, let's just say. And of course, yeah, now we know with modern science that it literally backed that up, because it contained compounds with anti-inflammatory and astringent properties. So our ancestors knew that before modern science came to investigate what was going on and back it up as fact. And that perhaps offers a glimpse as to why it earned such a lasting reputation as a healing herb. But Yarrow goes far beyond that, and its greatest power wasn't simply what it did to the body, but what it also gave to the mind. We have magpies calling. And to carry Yarrow was to carry reassurance. In an age when an injury or an everyday journey carried risk of injury, and when a simple cut could become life-threatening, when a battle or hard labour could leave lasting scars, this little meadow plant became quite a symbol of resilience. And that became one of its defining traits, of resilience. It reminded people, that even in the hardest moments, the land itself might still offer comfort. And in my opinion, it does. Even today, our modern pharmaceuticals are based around plants. And so the little white flowers growing beside the path became seen not only as merely a herb, but as a faithful companion, one that stood beside us in times of hardship, just as it stood in the meadows each summer. It offered strength and courage when confronting danger, and it was stitched into clothes as a talisman for that purpose. They're traits that became synonymous with the plant: strength, courage, and healing, along with protection. But it went even further than that. And not all of Yarrow's folklore was concerned with healing the body on the battlefield. Some believed it could reveal the secrets of the heart also. And for centuries, young women across parts of Britain gathered Yarrow for a very different use. On certain nights, especially around midsummer or other traditional pagan festivals, let's just say, not pagan festivals, but other traditional festivals, sprigs of Yarrow were placed beneath a pillow before sleep. And that was for one simple hope. And that was that night our ancestors believed that the person might dream of their future spouse and the person that they were destined to marry. And I suppose that was kind of a quiet form of divination, not a grand magical rite performed by a wizard or a witch, but just a small, deeply personal custom that formed part of everyday country life. Let's see, in some parts of England and in Scotland, the ritual was accompanied by a spoken verse. And one of the best known surviving, well, in several different forms, went something like, "Thou pretty herb of Venus tree, thy true name is Yarrow. Now whom my blossom friend must be, pray tell thou me tomorrow." And I hope I didn't butcher that too much with my pronunciation of ye olde English. And I suppose the words would have been spoken softly before going to bed, trusting that the plant would reveal through dreams the face of the future husband. Or why would it just be the husband? Why couldn't it be of the future wife as well? Anyway, that's a whole different conversation. Other customs were more elaborate, and some said that Yarrow had to be picked in silence, while others insisted that it should be gathered by moonlight or from the edge of a field where it had grown undisturbed in silence. But however it was picked and whatever the intention, the rite was more or less the same and quite similar throughout all of Europe. And in a few traditions, the sprigs were tied in a ribbon before being placed beneath the pillow, while elsewhere it was simply just placed under the bedclothes and whispered to before the night's sleep. Like many pieces of folklore, the details change from village to village, and that's the great thing about this knowledge and these old wisdoms, is that they have a fundamental core. But I find it fascinating that that core belief stays the same, but just little things, little flourishes, change from area and location to location. Yarrow was believed to stand at the boundary between the waking world and that of dreams, a little bit like mugwort, and it was said to carry whispered questions into the night and perhaps return with a quiet answer before the morning came. And these customs remind us that folklore was never only about protecting crops or curing illness or stories of monsters that walked through the forests or through the paths on it, through the lanes or in the fields at night. It was deeply personal as well. And for a young woman facing uncertain futures with little control over what lay ahead, a simple sprig of yarrow beneath the pillow offered comfort and excitement, and the possibility that somewhere in the mystery of sleep, tomorrow's story might already be waiting, and that there might actually be a happy ending, a happily ever after. And I like that. I love that about just a simple little plant offering hope. And it wasn't because people expected certainty. It was because they longed for a glimpse of a future that might hold hope from that everyday of toil, of danger, of uncertainty. And this little plant offered a glimpse of hope in just a small little way. Hope that you might survive the battle. And that's a powerful, powerful symbol in such a little plant. That's a powerful concept to hold on to. Hope. If Yarrow was believed to protect the body from injury, well, it was also thought to offer protection in less visible ways. And across Britain, it was carried as a charm against misfortune and illness. It protected children from the fae folk, and was said to, in some traditions, it was hung above cribs to drive out the fae that might have possessed the young children. And it was said to protect against harm, physical harm, as opposed to mugwort's spiritual harm. It offered to bring reassurance to those setting out on long journeys or facing uncertain times, unlike the thorn of hawthorn or the bramble, which protected by keeping danger at a distance, or mugwort, whose scent was thought to drive away unseen evils. Yarrow was often carried close to the body. Its protection was personal. It travelled with you, not just like it travelled with you just like mugwort, but it offered a different kind of protection. Mugwort's protection was more a spiritual protection against evil spirits, whereas Yarrow offered strength and courage to fight against harm. Yarrow became associated not only with healing wounds, but with strengthening the spirit of a person who carried it. It gave them fortitude. It gave them the reassurance to be brave and to face the danger. One of the best known traditions of divination that it offered was through taking a handful of stalks and using them to seek answers to questions that could not easily be resolved. The details varied again from place to place, but the idea was always the same, and that was the natural world, if approached with patience and respect, might offer guidance where certainty was, well, not certain, and it offered the guidance and reassurance when certainty was not there. And these customs were never about commanding or demanding of the future. They were about listening. They were about taking note of the rhythms of the seasons, the quiet signs found in nature. And they offered a hope that the world held patterns waiting to be understood. And I think for many country people, there would have been little distinction between practical and spiritual. And in a lot of cases, you find in these folklores that there wasn't a distinction. The two went hand in hand. One reinforced the other. The plant that could help bind wounds might also comfort you in times of anxiety when it came to love. A flower that returned faithfully every summer might also remind them that hardship like winter would eventually pass. And these little plants have such powerful messages and meanings that perhaps that's the greatest lesson hidden with Yarrow's folklore. Its magic was rarely loud, it wasn't dramatic, it didn't promise impossible miracles, it didn't offer invisibility or sudden transformations. Instead, it offered something quieter. It offered protection, courage, inner strength to face your enemies, and above all else, hope, and the belief that even the most ordinary flower growing unnoticed beside a path might carry a wisdom far older than ourselves. Like I mentioned earlier, they are prehistoric men. Bodies from 9,000 years ago have been found carrying Yarrow. Whether we call it folklore, whether we call it faith, or simply the comfort people found in a natural world is for each of us to decide. But for countless generations of our ancestors, Yarrow was never just another wildflower. It was a trusted companion, carried not because people feared the world, which they did. Stepping out of your front door was a dangerous task, but because they wished to walk through it with a little more confidence. And this tiny little plant offered that. It offered that little bit of hope. So that's my take on Yarrow. It's a small take. There's lots more to it, but it's a flower worth remembering. It's not towering like an oak. It doesn't have a powerful, strong trunk. There's no dark reputation like the yew tree. There's no fierce thorns like the blackthorn or the bramble. It doesn't demand our attention. There is no hidden knowledge that to quest for like with the fern. Instead, it just quietly waits in meadows and along forgotten paths and beside countless lanes where our ancestors and we have walked for countless generations. And maybe that's why it's one of Britain's most trusted wildflowers. Not because it was rare, but because it was dependable. It wasn't mysterious, and it certainly was beloved and useful to everyone in everyday life. That's my take on Yarrow. If you've got this far, thank you for watching. It's very appreciated. I am humbled that although we're still a tiny little channel, we've now hit over 300 subscribers. So I am ever so humbled by those that have subscribed, those that have liked, those that have commented. And thank you for watching. If you are at all interested in the folklore of the forest, we have I've many more subjects to cover, but for now my name is Mark. This has been the Enchanted Wood. Stay safe and please stay enchanted, and until next time, take care.